You're listening to the Chopped Podcast, episode number 69. Hey everyone, I'm Marly of the blog Namely Marly. Thanks for joining me today for the 69th episode of the Chopped Podcast. You know this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. You've tuned in for another episode of FriChats. Cara and of the site Fork and Beans and I are talking each week about different topics related to food bloggers. So today we're talking about seeds and switches. So you may be thinking, what the heck is that? And I think it's a great question. Just think of it this way. Seeds are things that you plant that you don't see immediate results from. They take time to get the results. Switches, on the other hand, are the result of the modern world. You flip a switch and something happens. A light turns on, the blender turns on, the air conditioning turns on, whatever. Something happens as a result. Immediately, something happens as a result of you flipping that switch. And I think there's space for both of these things in our lives, especially as food bloggers. But I think it's important to know the difference between the two. And that's what our discussion is about today. I think you're going to love it. So why don't we get right to it? Everyone, it's time for FriChats. Hey everyone, it's Friday, so you know what that means. On the Chopped Podcast, it's time for FriChats. I'm Marly, and I'm here with Cara and of the site Fork and Beans. Hey, Cara.
What up, Marly? Hi, welcome.
It's FriChats. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling Friday-rific, and yes, I am in my lounge pants. So there, if you heard last week's podcast, we were talking about working naked and what kind of clothes you wear when you're working. And I confess, I love lounge pants, and I'm wearing them.
Hey,
and
you know what? Whatever it takes. I am actually in my yoga pants, so it's those are close to lounge pants, aren't they?
Hey, there you go. Yeah, these are a little more breathable than yoga pants.
But I can get up and do yoga.
No. Yeah, I wear yoga pants, but I don't do yoga. Go figure the irony in that.
That is ironic. I would have taken you as a yoga person.
No, I hate it. I cannot stand it.
Really? Are you being serious?
I'm so serious. There's only two forms of yoga that I really like. One of them is yin yang. Is that right? Yin yoga. Yeah. And it's just stretching. I'm just lazy, I guess. I just want to be on the floor and just let me touch my toes for 5 minutes.
And then be done with it.
Yeah, I don't want to do sun warrior position. It's just not me. It just isn't. I don't know.
Well, you got to go with what you know about yourself.
Yeah, I like that, and I like Kundalini. Is that right? Kundalini chanting. I like the weirder stuff. What about you?
You like the weirder
yoga,
stuff?
Gal?
I really do like yoga. I mean, I used to take a lot of classes. I don't anymore, but I used to take classes a lot, and I love it. But I feel like when I'm doing yoga, it helps me stay more flexible. It helps me feel strong. But that's just me. I'm also kind of competitive, and I'm really flexible, so I think that's part of it.
Oh, here we go. Truth.
Here's the truth.
Out, Marly.
Yes. It's all my ego.
Well, I'm not, and that's also why we stick to the things we're good at, and maybe it's because I'm not. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, I'm just being completely honest. There's
I love it.
But I'm not saying now I have to work at being flexible. I used to be. I could just belly plant on the floor with my legs stretched out, but not anymore.
Wow. Your authenticity is refreshing. Thank you for saying it. Seriously, because most people would try to mask it as a spiritual practice, although, it is, but there is a little bit of ego mixed in that, and I think that's the truth in a lot of things, so.
Yes.
Why I like you.
Oh, I like you too, Cara. So let's talk about our topic for today. I actually stole this topic from Rob Bell. I don't know, do you listen to his podcast?
I know of Rob Bell from my previous days, but I did not know that he had a podcast.
Yeah, he's got a really good podcast. It's called the Robcast. And
cute.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, so Cara, let me tell you, I have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years just absorbed in these podcasts that talk a lot about, like, 100 ways to grow 100,000 followers or whatever. Like they're very focused on the business side of blogging, and it's a lot of this how to, and lately I have found myself very drawn to more soul focused podcasts. Like the Lively Show is a great example. Robcast is another one I really, really love. I think you might like this one too. It's Krista Tippett has a podcast called On Being. Anyway,
okay.
I don't know
great.
what it is about it, but I have to go with it right now because I just feel alive when I listen to those episodes. So I've been listening to them a lot lately.
Well, it just seems like the idea of being authentic is very, not heavy on your heart, but it's just a strong urge for you. And it sounds like you gain a lot of wisdom in those. I mean, there's great things to be gained from on the business side of blogging, but it's kind of like how they say social media, right? You can't control what social media does. So in blogging, you have to learn how to control what you can control, and that's like your email list and, the way you kind of earn your income in different ways. It's kind of the same with that. The one thing that you can control is just how you grow as a human being, and how authentic that you can be. And so when you work on yourself constantly, then maybe that doesn't guarantee that you're going to be extremely successful in whatever way you want it to be in life, but at least it can mean that you can work on this path of being happy and getting rid of all the junk.
So feeding my soul doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have 100,000 Instagram followers, but it does mean I'm going to be happy with whatever followers I have.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So I stole this topic from a recent episode of Rob Bell's podcast, and he called it Seeds and Switches. And what I loved about this is, like, basically, here's what he says. We are products of the modern era. And the modern era is defined as, when machines were invented. And machines are all about switches and cranks and shafts and all of these things that are, indicative of, like, I turn a switch and something else happens. The light comes on, or the microwave starts, or whatever. And we've gotten so used to this instant gratification that sometimes I think we, for example, like I go on my site to do one thing that I needed to get done, and my site stalls out, and it stalls out for like 5 seconds. And this is not like on what everybody else sees. It's like the internal side of my site. And I am just all crazy, like, oh my God, what's going on here? And that's crazy.
No, I am flashing back to 15 years ago when the internet, you had to connect to the modem, and then you had to wait for it to like ring and make that horrible sound of connection. And that was like a 10-minute ordeal. How did we survive back then? I don't know, I'm the same way.
It's like we are online instantly, and yet when there's the slightest of delays, it just feels terrible.
Anger.
Anger is a great way of saying it, because I think in some ways the expectation was all this technology would make our lives easier, but in reality it seems like technology has caused us to have to do so much more, enabled us to do so much more.
And I think even when it comes to like texting, I am not a phone person. I'd rather talk to somebody face to face. And I don't know. I never have been. I was never that girl in high school who would be on the phone nonstop.
Me neither.
I just don't like it. And especially if I have a friend who lives like in the same state as I do, and I see them pretty often, and talking on the phone is weird to me. That's just me, though. And the idea of texting, it's really difficult because you have to answer immediately, it feels like, or then somebody thinks that you're angry with them. And it just makes you available to people in a way I don't necessarily enjoy all the time. I like my space. You know, I have a friend who I know that if I text her, she probably won't respond to me probably within 3 days. But she's honest about it, and I respect that because she knows what she needs to take care of herself, and she doesn't like to be bombarded with too many texts, and she'll do it on her time, and I like that. I don't know. I need to start learning how to do that.
I think it's good. I actually worked at this company once, and the executive vice president said something about how the phone is there for your prerogative. You don't have to answer the phone. I mean, he was talking about his home phone, not the work line, but basically you don't have to answer the phone. And I thought that just enlightened me. It was like, whoa, really? Yeah, that's true. You don't have to respond to every text. But I do feel that. I mean, especially nowadays, they know that you've seen the text.
Yes. Or certain emails, they can see you actually open it, you know?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of pressure there. Like, you know, am I this bad person if I don't immediately respond? And that kind of reminds me of what Rob was talking about on the other side. So the switches are where we want this instant gratification. But on the other side is the seeds. And seeds are organic, and they're like our soul. It doesn't happen. We can't just go, I want to be enlightened today. Or, you know, I'm on this journey for authenticity. It's not like I can go, boom, I am now in touch with my soul. I'm there.
No?
It takes a long time. You have to plant seeds.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said, aw, boo.
Boo, I know.
I like instant gratification.
I do too. But I do think the things that matter the most are the things that will take some time. So, you know, maybe, you know, some examples in a blogging world could be, you know, if you did reach out to a brand that you really feel passionate about and you don't hear a response back immediately, it doesn't mean that that was a terrible thing or it was a failure. Some things just take some time to develop.
Yeah, that takes a lot of time. I think that's a common question I get about how much do I charge? What do you charge? You know, is it based off of my page views? How do I know all this stuff? How do you get brands to notice you, et cetera, et cetera? And I don't think people necessarily enjoy my answer because it's not like a clear-cut one. It is just that. It's like that takes time. There are brands that I courted for years that now I have a relationship with in a sponsorship way. But that took a really long time of me just doing what I was doing, loving my work, and letting them realize that they, you know, can support me in what I'm doing, and I can support them because we believe in each other. And, you know, but there's no time frame on that.
Yeah.
I think we want to start, and we want to start a social media account, whatever it might be, and we want all the followers tomorrow. And it doesn't work that way because, tell me if you agree with this, Marly, I look at people who have, you know, triple the amount of following that I have and think, well, that's not fair. Well, that's not really what I think. But, you know, like, I want that too.
Yes.
How come I can't get that too? Without realizing, oh, maybe because they've been blogging a little longer than you have, or, you know, they know something that you, who knows what it might be, but but it's really presumptuous of us to think, well, so-and-so has this, how come I don't have that? Well, so-and-so worked really hard for that. Doesn't mean that I'm not working hard, but I gotta wait.
Right. Or maybe they didn't work really hard for it. Maybe it just fell into their lap for some other reason. I have heard of that happening as well.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is like, if you can just, this is definitely a theme. If you can reflect on yourself and realize you are where you are because it's where you need to be, and you don't know what's happening for you tomorrow. Sometimes I think there's a reason why things take a little longer. Maybe you're just not ready for it at this moment. It's a very spiritual thing.
I think that is beautiful. I really do. And I think that's very powerful, too, when you start accepting that as truth.
Yeah. I can talk about my husband.
Ooh, talk about him.
Okay, so I'm divorced. I was divorced and a single mom, and it seemed to me like I would notice other people coupling up, other single people. It's like, why do they get this? I liked this guy a little bit, and somebody else would end up with him or whatever. And
Yeah.
then I would just. I don't know. Something happened, and I just decided to be okay with being single, and that's when I met Sean. And we met over a guitar. I mean, it's like everything that I love.
Oh,
I know
Marley.
it's a great story. I love how we met, and I love that we're a great relationship. And I think it's more than I could have even asked for. So it's like there were times I was so frustrated that it was
Mm.
taking longer than I hoped for, or this guy I thought looked like a good
Yes.
catch and it didn't work out, and then it ended up that what was waiting for me was even better.
Sometimes we have no idea what it is we're actually asking for.
Yes,
I
and to
mean, yeah.
yeah, have the wisdom to have the patience to wait for that. I mean, patience is not necessarily my virtue, but in hindsight, I can
No,
see
it's
where
not.
it was good.
Yes. It's hard. It's really difficult to also be gentle on yourself in that patience because
Yeah.
something that you and I have very much so in common is the list of shoulds. And so,
Uh-huh.
so we think we should be elsewhere when we don't realize that right now this is exactly where we need to be.
Yes. And just because you're being patient doesn't mean that you don't have okay, so here I am, this vegan, and I'm going to give this fishing analogy. It's really weird, I know, but, you don't catch fish by jumping in the lake, but you do have you got your line in, in the water. So, I think that's what we're trying to say is like, you need to be on Instagram just to take away the feeling of desperation about why don't I have 15,000 followers or whatever it is that makes you feel negative.
Well, I think that's a great point. That means that you have your power, right? It gives
Yes.
you, you can be
Yeah.
patient, but you still have the power for taking control of what's going on. But you have the power of your own emotions, too. Isn't that the
Yes.
whole point of all of these topics? Learning how to reframe your thinking, learning how to take care of yourself. You are not a victim. And when you can start realizing that you're not the victim here, you are responsible for yourself and how you deal with whatever comes up. There is great power in that.
You know what I love about that too, Kara, is I think sometimes if we are thinking in a switch mentality. So, for example, when somebody sends me an email or I'm on some email list and it says you can get 100,000 followers on your whatever tomorrow if you do this. To me, that's kind of portraying that's me feeling like I am unempowered. They have the power. I need to
Yeah.
participate in their webinar or their program, and that will solve all my problems. That is
Yep.
perpetuating that me as a victim role.
And it perpetuates if I get X, Y, and Z, then I will finally be happy.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. Wow, this is complicated stuff, isn't it?
It is. It's so tiring at times too. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really. I mean, I think when you can get to that moment where you just realize that I need to enjoy the moment,
Yeah.
and it's not always as big of a deal as I'm making it, and I can reframe it however I need to, and just enjoy what I have because you and I are thinkers. We think a lot
Yeah.
about things, and we sift through a lot of information, and that can be really tiring.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people out there who are listening to this podcast who are feeling the very same way. I think it's the kind of personality that attracts blogging. We're
Yes.
especially the perfectionism aspect of it. So we're always trying to improve and comparing ourselves to other people. But, sometimes you just want to take a deep breath and sit back
Yes.
and go, let's just enjoy my hard work.
Yes. Look at this
Maybe
garden.
I'm
Like
not
if we're,
yes,
yes.
yes,
If we're looking at our site and the work that we're doing as a garden and we're sowing
yes.
these seeds, look at this beautiful garden that we're planting. It's, the pictures on your site if you love them or whatever. I think that's so good.
Especially like I'm trying to grow tomatoes right now. Do you
Yeah.
grow tomatoes?
Don't get me started on tomatoes.
Okay.
We have squirrels and the squirrels eat everything. And I'm very angry. I'm an angry squirrel person.
We won't go there with the squirrels then, but
yes.
We're trying to grow tomatoes in our tiny little balcony, and it's super exciting to see the flowering buds come out and seeing the yellow flowers, and every day we're like little school children on Christmas Eve, peeking in and looking at them and getting really excited about the possibilities of that. Yeah, so there's something in that that's really enjoyable, and I love that how you describe seeing your site as a garden too, that this is going to take time. We need a lot of time to cultivate whatever it is that we're looking for eventually, but enjoy it. Look at your pictures and freaking high-five yourself saying, I could have done this last year, because I know I couldn't have, so find the good in it.
Yes. A good and also a sense of wonder. That's what I'm hearing. Like when you're out there looking at, that's like a little, in preschool, they have classes where they're showing the kids the seeds. And why can't we have that same sense of
I remember
wonder
that.
and excitement about that,
Well, because you forget where you came from. It's like losing weight, right?
Yes.
When you're like obsessed with trying to lose weight, you don't see the transformation happening before your very own eyes, right?
Right.
And that's what they always say, take transformational photos, because then you can physically see the change happen where, I mean, you're seeing it in front of yourself in the mirror, but you really aren't seeing it at all.
Yeah.
And so taking those photos is very helpful. And having that documented catalog of your blog, I mean, I'll go back to 5 years ago and look at my photos, and I am gobsmacked. Like, how did I go from here to here?
Yeah.
It's been a long journey, but and I wanted it to happen overnight. What I'm doing now was kind of the vision what I had back then.
Yes.
And I'm going to say that next year. Like, can you imagine some of those photos I took last year? It just keeps getting better and better. But give yourself that credit. Look at how far you've come.
Did you feel like 5 years ago that you would be able, like, okay, let me say this differently. 5 years ago, I would say, oh yeah, this is what my photos are going to look like. And they did not come out like what was in my head. It took 5 years for that to happen.
I remember submitting to Taste Gawker. Was that right? Food Gawker.
Food Gawker?
Wow. Okay.
Whatever.
And I remember every single time I would submit, I would get rejected. And just feeling indignant. I'm like, what do you mean? My photos aren't good enough?
It's a great photo.
Yeah, it's super clear, and I love it. And I go back and look at it, I'm like, well, I don't blame them for rejecting that one. No. But in my mind, I saw something different. And I think that's because the wonder was very much there in the beginning. I was doing something I've never done before, and look at this. Isn't this fun? And so it's like I have to get back in touch with that at times. I have to remind myself the same thing. I have to remind myself when I'm having a photo shoot and it's not going the way I want to take a step back, take a deep breath, ask myself what it is I'm looking for, and then just keep trying at it. That's why I can only do one post at a time, because sometimes it takes all day to get it right. But what an incredible thing that I can do. I don't think I would have been able to say that I could do that last year. I got to give myself more credit. You have to give yourself more credit. We all do. We started a freaking blog.
Yes.
We figured it out. That's hard work in itself.
Yeah.
For most of us, yeah.
I love it. And I think that's the whole topic of today, is like really giving yourself the patience and the what is the other word I'm trying to think of here? Like the compassion, self-compassion,
Compassion.
just like
Oh,
you would,
yeah.
just like you were, gently taking care of your garden and fertilizing it and giving it water and making sure it got sunshine, doing that for yourself and knowing that things just take time sometimes. I think it's really important.
Okay, so let's stick with that garden analogy too,
Okay.
because I really love this idea that when we're trying to grow a plant or an herb or whatever, and it's starting to die, what do you just toss the whole thing out in the trash and say, "I suck. This is terrible. I'm never going to be a good gardener"?
No,
Or maybe you do.
I don't do that. No.
What do you do?
I usually, I try to figure out what that plant needs. Like,
Ah.
sometimes they need more sun and sometimes they need less sun or whatever. I'll look it up online and try to figure out what does that plant need? How can I save it?
So this is the key thing I learned in behavioral therapy. I used to work with kids with autism, and they taught us, when you're in a session, if the child is not behaving the way that you want them to, you have to ask yourself an assessment of questions. Is it the child itself that's just being out of control and they're just trying to misbehave? Am I not teaching this clearly? Do I need to revamp the way I'm coming about it?
Mm,
Or is this just for attention? Or, you're constantly asking yourself those questions. And the reason I ask you about the gardening is I do the same thing. Like, I don't throw it all out and think that I'm the worst gardener ever, even though I do have a brown thumb. But I try it. I still try it at it because I enjoy it. And I just figure I'm doing something wrong. I need to tweak it a little bit. And what is
right.
it that I can tweak? Why do we then go to this didn't get the response that I wanted on our site, on social media? Nobody's ever going to like me, or
I
I'm
suck.
never going to be successful. I suck at this. I'll
Yes.
never have good enough pictures like so-and-so. I'll never have a big enough following. Like,
Yeah.
wow, we are so hard on ourselves.
I think it's because we're putting ourselves out there. I mean, it feels like a
Oh,
public
that's a really
failure.
good, yeah. No, that's a really good point, Marley. I didn't
You
even
know,
think about that.
yeah, there's something about, like if you trip and fall, but then if you trip and fall
I
in
know.
front of people, you're just immediately like, so self-conscious of yourself. And, you know, in reality, nobody probably is even paying attention to. I think I told you about this
Oh,
site that
yes.
I found this site I really love. It's called Wait, but why? And I'll include a link in the show notes page because you guys have to check this out. It is such a good post, and it's on the topic, my favorite topic, which is authenticity. And I think that he actually refers to it as why you should not care what other people think of you. And my favorite, yes, he draws these little stick figure cartoons in between the words that he writes because they're super long posts. But one of them is, "This is what you think other people think of you." And he's referring to your ego side of you. So your ego, which he refers to as your woolly mammoth, is what helps
I
us
love that.
survive. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans survived by working together in groups. And now that woolly mammoth, that ego inside of us, has been trained that we have to get along. Everybody has to like us so that we can survive. And in reality, that's not necessarily a skill that's as needed today. We actually need to be thought leaders. We need to be putting ourselves out there. So he showed this cartoon, and it was, here's what your woolly mammoth wants you to think that other people think about you. And it's a picture of you. The stick figure in the middle is like you. And then there's all these people, stick figures looking at you. And there's one in the back going, could you move over? I can't see her. This cracks me up every time I think of it.
Oh my
Oh
God,
my
I love it
God.
so much.
Like we
Can you
think
move
everybody's
over? I can't
thinking
see her.
they want to see us so bad, like they can't, like move over, I can't see
Oh,
her. But in
oh my God.
reality, everybody is so busy with their own days. If you put a post out there and it's a total flop or whatever, people are probably not even caring.
Nope. Nope, not at all. That's
Yeah.
the
It's kind
that's
of the
the
beauty
crazy
of it.
thing.
Right.
Yeah. One, I think that gives you room to fail too,
Yes.
or just to grow, because I don't necessarily see it as a failure, but
Right.
but it gives you that freedom to explore different ideas with the site and see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yes, exactly. The freedom is such an important topic on that one. Just the freedom of allowing that seed that you planted to grow, I think is just a beautiful thought.
Yes. And I love what you said about having compassion too, and being gentle on yourself with where you are at. I think that might be the hardest thing for me. And just realizing that you can't see growth and change by hating yourself. You can't beat it into you. You have to cultivate love and compassion for yourself. And if that means accepting that you're not perfect, then that's a great place to start.
That is beautiful, Cara. I think that covers it for this week. But I do want to point out that we should talk about our hashtag on Instagram that I am absolutely loving. It's hashtag blogger me time. And I think every week we've really had this theme of how, even though we're talking about different topics, it seems to always kind of resolve to, we need to really be focused on ourselves, and taking that me time is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can't be your own champion, then you can't expect anybody else to. So it's time to cultivate that and take care of yourself. And we were really loving seeing what other people are doing online and how they take care of themselves. This has been great.
Yeah. And, I guess if anybody has photos, I mean, of course, share whatever you feel like works here. But, it is that time of year where we're probably growing herbs in our garden. And I love having fresh herbs for food photography. So it might be kind of fun to have some hashtag blogger me time that includes some work that you're doing in the garden. That might be kind of fun.
Love it. Farmers market, fresh vegetables.
Yes, farmers market. Perfect. Yes.
Who doesn't like a good farmers market?
I know. I love it. We've got a huge downtown Kansas City one that I'd like to go to. Oh,
that sounds
amazing.
Awesome.
I know. You'll have to go there with me one of these days.
I'll be there this summer, hopefully.
I can't wait.
Yay!
So I think we covered everything on seeds and switches. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Just that you all rock. You're doing a great job. You're good enough. You're smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like you. Keep doing what you're doing. Seriously.
Love it. Thanks, Cara.
Thanks, Marly. See you next week.
Thanks so much for joining us for FriChats. If you'd like to see the show notes page where we left links and notes about today's discussion, or if you'd like to sign up for our weekly email newsletter to get tips on food blogging, just head over to choppedpodcast.com. That's it for today's show. Here's to something inspirational coming your way today.